Second Kings is the second part. The second part of Second Kings is divided into two parts by Israel's fall, after and before the fall. This second part was about Lord's judgment, whereas the first part of the Second Kings was about the Lord's love. He had struggled with trying to reform the Israelites. He had punished the people when they did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord, but saved them again with his love. He saved both Israel and Judah through two kings with the same name, Joash. He made Israel very strong through Jeroboam II, the son of the king of Israel, Joash. But he did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord again. Hence the Lord decided to destroy Israel. The king Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, was killed by Shallum, and he became the king of Israel. As stated in 2 Kings chapter 15 verse 12, the word of the Lord spoken to Jehu was fulfilled. Your descendants will sit on the throne of Israel to the fourth generation. Azariah, the son of King Amaziah, became king of Judah and reigned for 52 years, which was the second longest reign in both the Israel and Judah kingdoms, after Manasseh, the king of Judah, who was the most atrocious in Judah. He became very strong and popular in his time. He was also called Uzziah, which meant the Lord is my power, and Azariah meant the Lord helped. It was presumed that Azariah was his original name, and Uzziah was his name as the king. He had conquered Palestine, and Ammon gave him a tribute. But he also made a mistake. He entered the most holy of the tabernacle because of his arrogance. Therefore the Lord afflicted him with leprosy until the day he died, as written in 2 Kings chapter 15 verse 5. He lived in a separate house, and his son Jotham had control of the palace and governed the people of the land. Menahem, king of Israel, did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord punished him through Pul, king of Assyria. He didn't reply to the Lord, and he tried to gain Pul's spot by giving him 1,000 talents of silver, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 15 verse 19. Pekah, king of Israel, did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and he afflicted him through Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. It was presumed that his other name was Pul, the one who had invaded Menahem, the king of Israel. Ahaz, the king of Israel, walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and even sacrificed his son in fire, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 16 verse 3. Hence the Lord judged him through Rezin, the king of Aram, and Pekah, the king of Israel. Ahaz didn't rely on the Lord and sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Assyria, with the silver and gold found in the temple of the Lord and in the royal palace. Hence the king attacked Damascus and deported its inhabitants to Kir and put Rezin to death, as written in 2 Kings chapter 16 verse 9. He built a new altar after what he saw in Damascus and placed it before the temple of the Lord, and brought the bronze altar on the north side, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 16 verse 14. And as written in 2 Kings chapter 16 verse 15, he ordered that only he was to use the bronze altar, and the new altar was used for sacrifices. And he changed the sacred instruments. The Lord used Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Israel, to recover what Ahaz had made, even in the eyes of the Lord, because he allowed to keep Judah. In his time, Hoshea, king of Israel, became a vassal of Shalmaneser, the king of Assyria, and paid him tribute, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 17 verse 3. Since later he no longer paid the king of Assyria, the king seized him and put him in prison. Then he invaded the entire land, marched against Samaria, and laid siege on it for 3 years. As stated in chapter 17, verse 6, in the 9th year of Hosea, BC 722, Shalmaneser captured Samaria and deported the Israelites to Assyria. As described in 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 7 to 23, all this had happened because the Israelites had sinned against the Lord. The Lord warned them through all his prophets and seers, "Turn from your evil ways, observe my commands and decrees," as stated in chapter 17, verse 13. But they would not listen and were as stiff-necked. They rejected his decrees and the covenant he had made with their fathers and warnings he had given them, as written in 17:15. So as stated in 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 18, the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them from his presence. Only the tribe of Judah was left. Who was the king of Judah when Israel was forsaken? It was Hezekiah, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 4. He removed the high places, smashed the sacred stones, and cut down the Asherah poles. He even broke the bronze snake Moses had made into pieces, because it also became an idol for the Israelites. As declared in 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 5, there was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. But as stated in chapter 18, verse 14, he also made a mistake in the following story. He gave him all the silver and gold that was found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasures of the royal palace without relying on the Lord when Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, attacked. But the king sent his commander to Hezekiah at Jerusalem. When he received the letter from the messengers and read it, Hezekiah went up to the temple of the Lord and prayed to the Lord, as stated in chapter 19, verse 14 to 15. The Lord replied through Isaiah, "By the way he came, he will return. He will not enter this city," as written in chapter 19, verse 33. As stated in 1935, the angel of the Lord put to death 185,000 men in the Assyria camp. So Sennacherib broke camp and withdrew. The next story was very interesting for a spiritual lesson. The god Elan was at the point of death, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 20, verse 1. Why did the Lord afflict him with this? This was presumed the Lord's test, because he had not responded to the Lord for the victory against Sennacherib. But he successfully passed this test through his sincere prayer and got a 15-year extension of his life. The Lord also showed him the sign for his healing by having his shadow go back 10 steps, as stated in chapter 20, verse 11. The next event was about the messengers from Babylon. He showed them all of the treasures in his palace, as mentioned in chapter 2, verse 15. This was the Lord's last test for him. Unfortunately, he failed to pass it. Then Isaiah said to him, "The time will surely come when everything in your palace and all that your fathers have stored up until this day will be left here, says the Lord," as stated in chapter 20, verse 17. And the captive of Jehoiakim was prophesied, as written in verse 18. This was about the end of Judah. That would happen through Babylon in BC 5a6. Why did he get this test again? It was presumed that it was because he didn't respond to the Lord again for his healing. As a consequence, he got a son, Manasseh, during his extended life, who was the worst king in Judah. He had 3 opportunities to respond to the Lord for his grace, but he failed to do it. All these 3 events were recorded in the book over 3 chapters, so that the descendants do not repeat the same mistake by realizing that the Lord is almighty and the ways we need to serve him. How do we need to serve him? We have to respond immediately to the Lord with thanks for his grace. This is the right way to acknowledge him in everything, as written in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6. Manasseh, the king of Judah, who was the first new king after Israel had fallen in BC 722, followed the detestable practices of the nations the Lord had driven out before the Israelites, as stated in chapter 21, verse 2. He seemed like Jeroboam, the first king of Israel. He was also the first king after Israel's destruction. Of course, it was presumed that he was punished because of his father's sins. The Lord declared in chapter 21, verse 13, I will wipe out Jerusalem as one wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. This was the origin for the Lord's resolution to destroy Judah. But it was very strange that he reigned for 55 years in Jerusalem, which was the longest reign in the history of their kingdom. There was no more information on him in the book of 2Kings, but the Lord brought against the Israelites the army commanders of Assyria, took Manasseh prisoner, put a hook in his nose, bound him with bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon, as stated in 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verse 11. In his distress, he sought the favor of the Lord and humbled himself greatly before the Lord of his fathers, as written in 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verse 12. Then he knew that the Lord is God, as written in 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verse 13. Afterwards, he got rid of the foreign gods and removed the image from the temple of the Lord, as well as all the altars he had built on the temple hill and in Jerusalem. Then he restored the altar of the Lord, as written in 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verse 16. He was the only case of transformation by the renewing of his mind in the kingdom's history. In consequence, he was probably able to reign for 55 years in Jerusalem, as mentioned in 2 Chronicles chapter 33, verse 13. When he prayed to him, the Lord was moved by his entreaty and listened to his plea. So he brought him back to Jerusalem and to his kingdom. This is one of the important keys in getting a response from the Lord. Even a man like him prayed to the Lord. He listened to his plea because he was transformed by the renewing of his mind as a humbled person. We must be humble before the Lord. This is the first step to approach him. Our life should be humble in everything, which is the way to offer ourselves as a living sacrifice. The story is telling us about the different views between the book of Kings and Chronicles. Kings was about the lessons for the people, and Chronicles was for pride and confidence of the Israelites as the chosen people by the Lord. Amon's officials assassinated Amon, the king of Judah, and made Josiah king in his place. In the 18th year of his reign, he requested the high priest Hilkiah to repair the temple of the Lord. Hilkiah found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord, as stated in chapter 22, verse 8. When Josiah read the book, he tore his robes and wept in the Lord's presence, and humbled himself before the Lord. Therefore the Lord blessed him, as written in chapter 22, verse 20. I will gather you to your fathers, and you will be buried in peace. Your eyes will not see all the disaster I am going to bring on this place. What does it mean this? Because the Lord had already decided to destroy Judah, he blessed him, so that he may not see it, which should have been very miserable. How did the Lord do it for him? He used Necho, king of Egypt, when he ventured to the Euphrates River to help the king of Assyria. Josiah marched out to meet him in battle, but he was killed at the Megiddo, as written in chapter 23, verse 29. After Josiah read the book, he called all the people from the least to the greatest and read the words of the book of the covenant in their hearing. He commanded the priests to remove all the articles made for idols from the temple of the Lord, as stated in chapter 23, verse 4. He slaughtered all the priests of high places on the altars, and he ordered all the people, celebrate the Passover to the Lord your God, as it is written in this book of covenant. as written in chapter 23, verse 21. This was a really historical moment because it had not been celebrated since the Judges ages in verse 22. Furthermore, he got rid of all detestable things seen in Judah and Israel, as stated in chapter 23, verse 24. This he did to fulfill the requirements of the law written in the book. He had shown us how to serve the Lord through 7 of his major activities: repaired the temple of the Lord, found the book, read it in people's hearing, removed all the articles made for idols, slaughtered the priests in high places, celebrated the Passover for the first time since the Judges age, and got rid of all the detestable things seen in Judah and Israel. It was a really great revival in the Israelite history. This is the way to live in accordance with the words of the Lord. How about us? We have to read the Bible every day and try to put it into practice in our lives. Then the Lord will bless us, as written in 3 John chapter 1, verse 2. Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. Neither before or after Josiah was there a king like him who turned to the Lord as he did with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his strength, as written in chapter 23, verse 25. Nevertheless, the Lord didn't turn away from the heart of his fierce anger, which burned against Judah because of all that Manasseh had done to provoke his anger, as stated in chapter 23, verse 26. Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, was anointed and made king of Judah by the people, as stated in chapter 23, verse 13. His mother was Hamutah, the daughter of Jeremiah. But this Jeremiah was not the prophet Jeremiah, because the prophet was from Anathoth, whereas she was from Libnah, as stated in chapter 23, verse 31. But he did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Then the Lord punished him through Necho, the king of Egypt. The king put him in chains at Riblah, so that he may not reign in Jerusalem. Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in place of Jehoahaz, his brother, and he changed his name to Jehoiakim, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 34. When Nebuchadnezzar invaded Jerusalem, he became his vassal for 3 years. Thereafter he rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. All these kinds of invaders were sent by the Lord to destroy Judah because of Manasseh's sin, as written in chapter 24, verse 2 to 3. The Lord sent Babylonians, Aramean, Moabite, and Ammonite raiders against him. He sent them to destroy Judah in accordance with the word of the Lord proclaimed by his servants the prophets. Surely, indeed, things happened to Judah according to the Lord's command, in order to remove them from his presence because of the sins of Manasseh and all he had done. Jehoiakim succeeded his father Jehoiakim as king at the age of 18, as mentioned in chapter 24, verse 6, and reigned for 3 months. He also did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Nebuchadnezzar came up and took him prisoner, as written in chapter 24, verse 12. As the Lord's declaration in chapter 20, verse 17, he removed all the treasures and gold articles made by Solomon from the temple of the Lord and from the royal palace, as stated in chapter 24, verse 13. He deported them to Babylon, fighting men, craftsmen, and artisans, as written in chapter 24, verse 16. It was presumed that Daniel and his friends were also deported at this time. He made Mattaniah, the son of Josiah, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah, as written in chapter 24, verse 17. Out of the 4 kings of Judah after Josiah, all of them were his sons, except Jehoiakim, who was the son of Jehoiakim. All kings except Josiah after Israel's fall did evil in the eyes of the Lord, like the kings of Israel. Therefore the Lord decided to destroy Judah. And Jeremiah the prophet had done his work since Josiah till the end of the Judah, and he witnessed the process of its destruction. Finally, he wrote this book for his descendants not to repeat the same mistake the Lord hated. Since Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar came up and seized Jerusalem for 18 months, and he took him to Babylon. Thereafter his commander, Nebuzaradan, came to Jerusalem and set fire to the temple of the Lord and Jerusalem, as written in chapter 25, verse 9. Nebuchadnezzar appointed Gedaliah to rule over the people he had left behind in Judah, as stated in chapter 25, verse 22. But Gedaliah was assassinated by Ishmael, and all the people fled to Egypt. It was presumed that Jeremiah was also part of them, and he wrote this book while he was staying in Egypt. It would be better for you to read the book of Jeremiah along with this book to understand it more clearly. The scenario of Israel, rewards and punishments. Let's review the scenario of Israel through the four major kings. Who were the major kings to memorize? Jeroboam, Ahab, Jehu, and Jeroboam II. These were the skeleton of the scenario. In other words, the Lord's rewards and punishments. Since King Solomon's sin, the Lord appointed Jeroboam as his messenger, but he committed idolatry sins, made 2 golden calves, and put it at Dan and Bether, made shrines and high places, appointed non-Levite priests to serve the Lord, and instituted a new feast on August 15. And Omri built Samaria and began to reign there. Then his son Ahab married Jezebel, the daughter of Adbal, king of the Sidonians, and Israel began to serve Baal and worship him. Hence the Lord appointed Jehu to completely destroy the house of Ahab, and he performed very well. So the Lord blessed him to sustain his throne till his fourth generation. Therefore the Lord recovered Israel through Joash his grandson, and strengthened it through his third generation, Jeroboam II. But Jeroboam II did great evil in the eyes of the Lord. So the Lord sent Amos the prophet to remind him of his sins, Jonah to demonstrate the way to repent, and Hosea to warn its destruction, but he didn't repent. Therefore Israel fell in BC 722. The scenario of Judah, the Lord's love. Who were the 6 major kings to memorize? Rehoboam, Jehoshaphat, Joash, Hezekiah, Manasseh, and Josiah. The scenario of Judah began with Rehoboam's misjudgment about governing people, which caused the kingdom's separation. Jehoshaphat made a connection with Jehu, the king of Israel, in marriage for a political reason, to protect his nation, not relying on the Lord. Because of this marriage, Baal idolatry was introduced to Judah, so his house was completely destroyed by Jehu. Because of the Lord's love, his son Joash was saved, and he tried to revive faith in Judah. But Ahaz greatly sinned in the eyes of the Lord. The Lord tried to revive Judah again through Hezekiah, but he could not pass the test, so he got the malicious son Manasseh. He also did great evil in the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord declared that he will destroy Judah because of its sins. But he finally warned Judah through Nahum the prophet with the lesson of Assyria's fall, and called Josiah to recover the temple of the Lord and read the book of the laws to the people, and gave them the last opportunity to repent through Jeremiah the prophet, but they didn't. Therefore he handed its remnants over to Babylon. This was a different end to Israel. He didn't want to perish then, because he still loved them. The theme of 2 Kings. The 25 chapters are divided into 8 topics. Elijah's events, Elisha's missionary, the fulfillment of the prophecy of Ahab, Joash's trial, Elisha's prophecy, Israel's revival and fall, Hezekiah's reformations, Manasseh's evil reforms, and Judah's fall, and its remnants deported to Babylon. Thank you for watching.